Welcome to Shelf Life. Today I talk with award-winning writer and filmmaker Janet Morrison, writer of A Different Me, A Better You. Hi, Janet. It's so good to have you on Shelf Life. Good to see you. Looking good.
Thank you very much. COVID not telling on me. COVID lockdown not telling on me. That's good.
Well, some of us thrived during COVID. And I have to say that as difficult as it was, there are certain aspects of my life that thrived.
Oh yes. I have to agree with you. Sad for the losses and the heartache and everything, but it has been a good time for reflection and for some of us to really consider where we are in life and where we really want to go. So in that sense, it has been really good for me.
And for creative people, most of my creative friends, and both of us being in the creative arena, a lot of creative people have told me it's been a good time for them to actually have time to create again.
Absolutely, yes.
So I'm looking forward to what is coming out of this period. But before we get into talking about all of that, and even before we get into talking about your book, which I thoroughly enjoyed because it was all about daring to be different. And I grew up being different, feeling different, knowing I was different, trying so hard to fit in at one point of my life, and then just gave up and said, okay, yeah, this is me. And so your book really resonated with me. But before we get to there, tell me a little bit about yourself, Janet, growing up. Where in Jamaica are you from, and what was life?
Okay, so we have 3 hours. My life has been varied, and for which I give thanks. I started out in Spanish Town. That's where my mother is from. My father is from St. Elizabeth, Malvern. And they met at the record office in Spanish Town. So I grew up to about age 4 in Spanish Town. And then he was sent to, this is wrong, pre-Federation and Federation time. That's how long ago it was. And he was sent to Grenada. So I spent 6 years. I actually grew an important part of my life was spent in Grenada from about 4 to about 10. So I actually came back to Jamaica just about when I was going to go into the last year of prep school and into high school. So I have a very strong sense of Eastern Caribbean and of Caribbean. I'm a Caribbean person.
I like that.
My sister is married to Trinidadian, and I have 3 Trinidadians, so I have no choice.
I like that because of course I'm a Jamaican first, but when I recognize myself as a Jamaican, but also as a Caribbean person. And I absolutely love the idea of being a Caribbean person, not just a Jamaican, but belonging to a wider community that is called the Caribbean. And it's funny that we're talking about that because my friend Rowan Budai, who is a blogger and a writer, he just wrote a piece about, not being West Indian. And I said to him, I'm not West Indian, I'm not Indian, and I don't know west of where. So
absolutely.
So
they didn't know either. That's why we ended up as West Indians. They didn't know where the hell they were going. So that's why we are where we are.
Yeah, but I tell him, I refuse to call myself a West Indian. I'm a Caribbean person.
I'm a Caribbean person. Yeah. I'm a Caribbean person.
I love that. So. And you tell Caribbean stories, which, I interview or have conversations with Caribbean authors, but I pretty much only read Caribbean authors. I mean, I went through my period of absorbing everything that there was out there to absorb until I came full circle to Caribbean literature and wow, the stories, the richness, the depth of Caribbean stories. And you tell Caribbean stories, not just in writing, but or in books, but in film. And I know we're supposed to be talking about your book, but I have to talk about The Silent Heart.
Yeah. Well, listen, we don't have to be apologetic for only reading Caribbean stories. I'm sure Europeans have no qualms about, the stories that they have written, that they have read, and that they've fed to us over the years. And that so we really don't have to be apologetic about only reading Caribbean stories. We have to give thanks that we now have this body of Caribbean, of work from authors throughout the Caribbean, you know. Thanks for the pioneers from way back, Matt Hall, and I mean, I won't go into them, but we give thanks for that, you know. So I make no apologies about who I read. Yes. In terms of Silent Heart,
okay.
Silent Heart, I don't know where to start with Silent Heart.
Let me start for you. Let me tell our audience what we're talking about. So The Silent Heart is a film that Janet did for the Propeller, JAFTA Propeller. You can go look it up and find out all the details about that, right? But JAFTA Propeller had these 5 films, and Silent Heart was one of the films that got funded. And that film, it broke my heart. It made tears come to my eyes, and I'm not somebody who cry at movies, because it was about a young girl who was pretty much going about her business and got taken. And that's all I'm going to say about it. Because at some point, I'm sure you plan to expand it into a feature.
Yes. Silent Heart actually started before Silent Heart. It really started when I entered the BBC playwriting competition, which I was, lucky to win.
Yes, in 2012, right?
Yes, that was it. And really, I was on holiday at home trying to figure out where I wanted to go in terms of career. At the time, I was in advertising. I was VP of Creative Services at Donald Corbin. And it was just at a time when I really wanted to leave advertising. I mean, it had served me well, and I was very grateful and all of that, but there was things that I needed to do, and time was ticking, So while I was on holiday, you lay off in front of the TV, and you're really trying to absorb what was really happening around you. And in the night on TV, there was this roster of young women missing.
Yes.
So every night you get a new name, Latoya missing, so and so missing, and I'm saying, where are these missing girls? And once I started to investigate, it kind of stuck in my craw. So again, while I'm on holiday, I'm on the internet, checking out things to do and where I can take myself out of this place that I was. And I saw this BBC playwriting competition. I said, radio was my original specialty when I was at college. I mean, I specialized in radio. I didn't work in radio for very long, but this was a radio playwriting competition. I said, you know what, it's true, I'm going to try it. Because I had written material, obviously, for radio, but the short format play in things like skits and, Under the Law. I was the first writer of Under the Law. Can you believe Under the Law?
And Under the Law is still going on.
That's said one is for that one, I'm telling you. That was my first.
I love Under the Law, by the way. I love Under the Law.
Yeah, it's an excellent, an excellent way of providing information in an entertaining format.
And just pick up in for people who don't know what Under the Law is. In Jamaica, there's a short radio skit that comes on every day, Under the Law.
The law, right.
Really tells you what the laws of Jamaica are and tells you what your rights are under the law, but in ways that make you listen to it because they're fun skits.
Yes, I have to remember that we're not only a Jamaican audience here. And I really want to give props to Ed Wallace, because he basically premiered that kind of format of delivering important social issue information, yes, in a way that people you can relate it to your everyday life, and now it's done all the time. And so from that, I said, I want to do a long format radio play then. Can I do this? I mean, that's 56 minutes, right?
Yes.
It's a lot of writing. And I only had a few days because the deadline was a couple of days. But I just jumped on the laptop. It was like a sequence of events that had been set there for me. Nobody can tell me that this was not, supposed to be. Because
Right.
I saw the girls, I saw the competition, and I just had this energy. It just fell out of me. It literally fell out of me.
I know how
onto
that
the
works.
laptop.
I know how
Yes,
that works.
it
My
fell out of me onto the laptop.
yeah.
I didn't even read over the thing. I mean, I corrected stuff, but I didn't even read over the thing. I just pressed send, and of course, I forgot that England was
A
how
different
many
time.
hours ahead of us. So when I look at it, I say, oh, I barely made it. Barely made it. So
Well,
you can imagine when I heard that I had won, which is another story how I heard. But
it's such a beautiful, beautiful film. It's such a
so
beautiful
from
story.
that I did Silent Heart. It's not an excerpt from
Right.
the radio play, but it is the same issue.
Right.
And having done Silent Heart, I have since developed a full-length feature called The Fisherman, which was the original name of the
Okay.
BBC.
So
yeah,
I'm
but
looking.
it takes Silent Heart. Boy, you're looking?
I'm
Good.
looking.
So you will help me to find funding.
Oh Lord. Oh Lord. Well, I did 4 feature films with very little funding. So
so you know how it is. So
I know
just put it out into the space for me so that,
I know exactly how
really would like to make that film.
I know exactly how it is. So let us move from film to book, because your book has 5 short stories for tweens, really.
Yes.
And the tween, I have tried to write in that space. And I've just not been able to write in that space. So I really take my hats off to writers who can write really good stories in that space, that space that between the, older youngsters and younger oldsters.
Right. Well, it helps that I've had 6 tweens.
I mean, I've raised quite a lot of tweens. I only biologically had 2, but I've raised quite a lot of them in my house. But somehow,
very good. So I just took from them. I really took from them. And also it helped that I was in the space of young people with disabilities. I mean, that is an experience that really, really is, you have to experience it.
Because this book is all about the 5 stories of 5 differently abled children who, have different disabilities or are differently abled, whichever of the terms you choose.
Right.
And just how much they can do despite that. And the fact that, I really loved, I think The Cave was my favorite of the stories.
A lot of people like it. Yes.
It was my favorite of the stories. And I just love the whole idea that here is somebody who could not see, who led everybody else to safety because he could hear better.
Right.
And
so for each of them, there is this, persons with disabilities will tell you that there's a reason why they don't say the blind boy, because the boy comes first.
Right.
I am a boy and I happen to be blind. So there are other things within me that are important. There are other abilities that I have, some of which you share, but some are even special.
Right.
My hearing is enhanced because of the disability. And so that's something special about me and different, about me.
And different.
And that's the important thing,
And the young girl who wanted to dance, but was in a wheelchair.
Right.
And that did not stop her from wanting to dance.
Yes,
and
she had a prosthetic and,
Yeah, and it did not stop her from doing everything that she could to get herself to the place where she could dance and where she was going to dance. And as a former dancer myself, I could really relate with her.
Relate to her, right.
So these stories are really stories of triumph. They're stories of how people who have disabilities have just overcome them. And what I found interesting in the books, in the stories, were the stories of the parents
Right.
The people
Because
around
you
them.
see, yes, the people around them.
The
Yeah.
ones who saw them as normal,
Right.
you know, and
Right.
just pushed them to do whatever it is you wanted to do. And then those who tried to pretend they saw them as normal, but you could tell still had not quite learned how to deal with it.
Yes.
And one of the things that you wrote in one of your books, something about Jamaica Sign Language. I didn't know Jamaica had its own sign language.
Absolutely. And that is one of the greatest difficulties that persons who are deaf or hard of hearing and who depend on sign language here. That's one of the rivers that we need to build a bridge across, because what has happened in the past is that American Sign Language has been taught. I mean, even in schools, when you see the children at concerts signing and whatnot, that's American Sign Language, right? And a lot of the schools have been developed for the deaf by overseas, some of the churches and so forth. But unfortunately, Jamaican Sign Language was not the first language that they were teaching. So it's almost like you're in a situation where you go to somewhere and English is not that person's first language, right? And it is mine. So that's what happens a lot of the time. When they go amongst themselves, they're signing in Jamaica Sign Language. And when they go to a particular situation. So there has been a big push by the Jamaica
Association,
right, to really push Jamaica Sign Language, and they've done a wonderful job with it. So what you see, that young lady, there's a young lady who signs for Parliament, Antoinette is her name, right? So you see Antoinette signing.
Yes.
For a lot of officials, she's signing Jamaica Sign Language.
So what's the difference? Because I was that one boom. I was like, hold on, Jamaica Sign Language. What's that? Is it Jamaica Sign Language in Jamaican language, as in what we used to call patois, what is really now Jamaican?
Well, I am not versed in Jamaica Sign Language, but it does have the cadence of how we speak, right? And what you have to remember is that, for instance, there are phrases that Americans use, there are phrases that French people use that are all common to the culture, right? So it's not a full translation of patois, but there's a cultural difference in how we speak. There's a cultural difference how we,
I never thought of that, because like we say it bad.
Yes, bad. So of course, and you notice also that even in her expressiveness, she uses her entire body. Mm-hmm. If you look at, for instance, say English Sign Language, they use up here more. So it's a lot of this more. But we use the whole body, and isn't that very Jamaican?
So do they sign our visual talking too?
Yes. Her whole. If you look at her, the next time you see her signing, look and you'll see her doing a lot of body, facial, very expressive.
I never usually pay attention to her because I can hear. But now that you brought it to my attention, I will be looking.
And then look at an American signer who does use their body as well, but you will see the difference in the language.
You see, people, this is what I love about Shelf Life, is that we're not just talk about the book. It's not just about the book. It's about all the things you learn by reading. It's all the things like, I didn't know there was Jamaica Sign Language, and in my big age here, so with gray in my head, I didn't know that. So, you'd think I should know that, but I did not know that.
No, but, yes, because you're not using the language, so
I guess I'm not using it.
Yeah.
So we don't have a lot of time left, but the book is called A Different Me, A Better You. And I want to say that growing up, before we actually started recording this, we were talking and I was saying, growing up, I always felt different. I didn't look different, but I felt different. I wasn't interested in most of the things that most girls were interested in. At age 12 and 13, I was reading transcendental meditation and all sorts of, esoteric types of things. It was just not what everybody else was reading. And I tried for a long time. Well, not a very long time, but I did try when I hit about my 20s, early 20s, to fit in. And I tried to do what other people were doing, wear the makeup, the high heels, all of that. And then believe it or not, my dear.
It just was, I'm laughing because it was me,
Yeah, I used to wear makeup.
I tried it. Makeup until I was about, 16, I tried it. And then it was the end of it, I've never worn it since.
I tried it and it just wasn't me. So I dared to be different. So the theme of your book of daring to be different and embracing being different really resonated with me.
Yes. Well, that came from a lot of things. It came from where I was in Grenada. The circles that my family had to move in because of that disposition. Because at that time, the administration was almost a quasi-governor thing.
Right.
And so the friends and the officials and the so forth, everybody was white. Let me just play.
Yeah, just say.
Everybody was white and brown skin. And I was the only black girl in that circle, right? So I was very different. Luckily, I was in a family that was very grounded. They knew who they were, and my parents, God bless them, they had no qualms about being of African descent. So they were very proud of who they were. And so that was passed to us.
Right.
So we were comfortable wherever we were. But I was different, and I noticed that difference. And then when I'm reading books, I'm reading and seeing all these white references. And so because I was an avid book reader, that made an impression on me that I wasn't seeing myself. And I always felt the outsider, So when my children went to St. Jude's Prep, and there was this inclusive environment, because they had a special unit where there were children with disabilities, I said, this is so important, because it absolutely impacted my children's lives. Just being with friends and being in that situation where they had children with different disabilities. And so inclusion has really been something that has been in my mind. Whereas when, as a Rastafarian from a middle class family, again, I was different, even among Rastafarians, because, we should go, uptown girl.
Uptowner.
Uptowner, so what should I do with? So that
I was fortunate in that when I walked that road, there were a lot of other uptowners walking that road.
Exactly. I mean, even at school, I went to Ryerson, which is again in a very white at that time. West Indians were just coming into Toronto. Yes. I was the only Black woman in my year in my radio and TV arts faculty. Thank God for the hotel people who were full of Caribbean people again. So I used to, so I, again, being the outsider and understanding what it is to be an outsider, I'm very sensitive to being inclusive, and to just, because we come out better for it.
Yes.
Like the persons who are, interacting with persons with disabilities, for instance.
Which is exactly what your title says. Yes. A different me, yes. A better you.
A better you.
You learn absolutely. How to be inclusive. Yes. And I think that in a society such as Jamaica, where we're not very inclusive, and I'm saying it, and who are
Yes.
who are Bex.
Absolutely. Yes.
we're not very inclusive. You know, if you don't look a certain way, if you don't walk a certain way, if you are in church and you don't fit a certain mold, if you are a Rasta and you don't fit a certain mold, if you are gay, if you are not too white, if you're too black, if you're, you know,
and you see, that is what causes a lot of tension in this society. So you're always trying to play one against the other, and you know, that's what causes a lot of tension. And so, you know,
and a lot of identity crisis that we have,
absolutely,
comes from the fact that we don't, like, I mean, I still have people who call me Brownie, you know.
Well, look for me. I look like a brownie too. Brown girl. Girl. I didn't know which one to be surprised that the girl or the brown.
And I mean, when I look in the mirror, I see a black girl. You know,
exactly.
I see a black woman.
Exactly.
I see a black woman when I look in the mirror. I see a black woman when I look at you. I don't see a brown woman or a, you know, I don't see any of those things.
How do you get to those things? I mean, you know, the scale is that you're looking at a makeup palette and you've got light and little lighter and lighter. I mean, you know.
And the funny thing is that when I'm home in Jamaica, because I spend so much time at the beach, I am not this light. When I'm home in Florida, which, you know, I live in both places. When I'm home in Florida, where I spend too much time in the air conditioning, I look like this. But you know, I say that to say that one of the messages of your book, which I think is so important, is teaching children to be inclusive, teaching children that things like the color of your skin, your gender, your disability, or your different abilities, whatever they are, don't change who you are as a person.
Exactly.
And I think that message comes across really strongly in all 5 stories. And I think that if we can get this message, there are some books that, and I'll be very honest, that I've done a lot of books on the show. There's some books that are great books, but I would not say must be a must read in a school. This is the kind of book that
I would love it to be in school.
A must read in our schools for our older young ones and our younger old ones, because it's a book that teaches in fairly simple terms, but in such great stories, well-crafted stories, why we need to honor each other and see everybody as valuable in our society, you know, and see that everybody has purpose, reason, and rhyme.
Right, absolutely. You put it so well. I couldn't have done it better myself. and what I think what is important about the book too, in terms of generations, is that it's the kind of book that that a parent can read as well and enjoy. And I've had quite a few people who they've given it to their child to read, and then they have read it. And so they are able to have a conversation about the content. And I think that is what is also very important.
Yes, and the fact that
parent and child can discuss. Yes.
And it's timeless. It's they're timeless stories. They're the kind of things that I would have taught my kids, who are both grown women now with their own children. And it's the kind of things that their children need to be taught, and the children after that need to be taught. And so I wish I had some kind of because so many of these books that I have reviewed belong in curriculum.
Belong in the schools, right?
Belong in the schools. They belong where our children not just have an elective to read. We have to read, analyze, write book report. Them still write book report?
I don't know. Tell you the truth. Sometimes I wonder. But you know, I think if we look at how children perceive books, I think that part of it has been our problem. When you talk about book, I think about school, learning, that situation. Books are fun.
Yeah.
Books, are entertaining.
I have to give props. I have to give props where props are due. I have to give props to like the BIAJ and even Blue Banyan, your publisher, Tanya, and people like that who are doing everything they can to make it fun. You know, Read Jamaica. Read Jamaica, where it's all about reading and reading being fun.
And children enjoy it. Read Jamaica, I've read at a couple of the schools and say, more miss, they want, they and I mean, not my book necessarily, but reading another book. They say, you want another story? They say, yes, miss.
They enjoy it. So, children still enjoy reading. My friend Dawn has a program, the Caribbean Edge Kids, and that every Sunday she has kids on there reading, and they're reading their favorite books and loving it. So, this idea that kids don't read anymore, I have proven it's not true. I've proven it's not true. I have read my Antarctica book to children's groups all over in the US, in Jamaica, and just seeing their eyes pop open and seeing them spellbound by the story and the pictures. So, I want to say, Janet, as we wrap up, thank you so much for this beautiful book. Thank you so much for A Different Me, A Better You, for writing something that will teach us that we need to be inclusive. We need to see that everybody has value, and that the heart that beats inside of us, the blood that runs in our veins is the same. It's the same. Whether I can walk or not, whether I can hear or not, it does not change who I am as a human being and as a person. And it does not change my value. So I want to say thank you very, very much. It has been fun. And
thanks for having me.
I am looking forward to the movie.
Just put it out there, girl. Just put it out there.
You're going to get funding, man. It will come. It'll come. It'll come. If I can do 4, you can do. You can. Trust me. It'll come. You just have to keep at it and get great.
Right.
But thank you very, very much. It was fun, and I look forward to the next one.
Thank you. I enjoyed it totally.
Have a great day. Stay blessed and stay safe. COVID still a keep.
Yes, I know it's still a keep. So everybody, just remember that. And there's no difference.
No.
It's very inclusive.
Very inclusive. Right. Thank you very much, Janet. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, my dear. You too.